Hey y'all, this is Nina Stevens, and I'm in the South where sushi is still called bait. So, what am I doing today? Today is the long-awaited how to make Southern tomato gravy video. Now, Spicy and I were going to try to do a collab video on this, but he has an illness, death in his family. So I'm going to go ahead and do how to make the tomato gravy, because this is my recipe, and then Spicy is going to follow on his channel if he can make tomato gravy using my video. And I think that's a really good idea. It's not quite how we intended on doing it, but it is what it is. You take life as it comes and you keep on trucking, people. Keep on trucking. So, come on back and I'll show you how I make tomato gravy. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you what ingredients I use to make tomato gravy. A lot of the ingredients can be tweaked or, you know, changed. If you don't have this, you can use something else. This is what I use. And on the oil, if I don't have olive oil, I will use Crisco. If I don't have Crisco, I'll use peanut oil, or sunflower oil, or whatever, lard. Lard is excellent to use to make tomato gravy. But this is what I have today. I have olive oil. And I use classic olive oil. I don't use virgin because of the heat tolerance of the classic olive oil. So, let me show you what I got. Okay, so the ingredients that you need to make tomato gravy: the olive oil. This is self-rising flour. You can use, this is plain flour. Sorry, this is plain flour. I don't have any self-rising flour on hand. I don't use a lot of flour now, since I'm doing low carb, but I do have this. This is plain flour. You don't need any baking powder. You don't need any salt. Plain self-rising flour will be fine. If you have self-rising flour, it's fine. Use it. It works just fine. Diced tomatoes and tomato sauce. And then the seasonings that I use: Tony's, pepper, and salt. That is it. So, I'm going to bring you over to the stove and I'm going to show you how I make tomato gravy. Okay, this is one of my staples in my kitchen, cast iron. This is the smaller of one of my cast irons. I think it is a 8-inch cast iron. I have a larger one that I do biscuits in. This one is perfect for a small group to make tomato gravy in. So this is what I'm going to use. Alright, so I'm going to start with 3 tablespoons of olive oil. Alright, that's all you need to make tomato gravy. If you're making enough for a 20-person army, you may need more, but this is going to be plenty. What we're doing here is making a roux. A roux is the base to any gravy in the South, or any gravy anywhere, I think. Of course, I haven't never been to the North, so I don't know how y'all make gravy up there. Down here, we make a roux. A roux is the base to gumbo. A roux is the base to beef tips and gravy. Anything that's gravy, the base is a roux. So we're starting with the roux. So I'm going to let that heat up. This is my high-tech technical device for measuring out my flour. Now I've got my heat set on about a medium 6 on this electrical stove contraption, and I'm letting my oil heat up. Let me jack it on up so we can hurry this along. Yeah, I need my oil to get hot. My oil, the outside of the skillet is doing the smoking. You don't want it so hot that it's smoking. But there's little bubbles coming up in the oil. Little bubbles coming up. So, we're going to take this and the flour. We're talking about a heaping tablespoon of flour. We're going to sprinkle it over the oil. Alright, it's sizzling. So the purpose of the flour is to soak up the oil. So we're going to keep adding. Alright. So you see you have the oil around that hasn't soaked up, and then you have the mound here that's not soaked up any. So we're going to give that a stir. We're going to move it around so it can soak up the oil. Because if you don't move it around, your roux is going to burn. Now, when you scrape the bottom, all the oil is soaked up, and there is a paste made out of the gravy, made out of the flour and the oil. So when you scrape the bottom, you go all the way to the bottom of the skillet. This is basically the same for any kind of gravy that you make. Keep that roux moving. Alright, so you want to keep it moving. Alright, at this point, when I'm letting my roux, my gravy mixture, my flour and oil mixture brown, is when I add my Tony's and my salt and my pepper. So I'm going to sprinkle Tony's. I'm going to add some salt. And more pepper. Now you can adjust those after it's made to your particular taste. And you want to get it moving, get it off the bottom. I've turned my heat down to about medium. Because if you let it set for too long without getting it off the bottom, your roux is going to burn. You're going to have burn spots in your roux. Gravy, tomato gravy, the base for gumbo, the base for beef tips and rice, any roux, you can't walk off and leave it. You've got to stay on it. So I'm moving it. This is not going to be as dark as the roux, as the base for gumbo. The base for gumbo is made particularly dark. That means that you keep moving your roux, and as you move your roux, it gets darker and darker. You're basically browning your roux. With tomato gravy, you don't need it to be that dark. Now if I was making sausage gravy is white because you use milk in your roux. If I was making sausage gravy, this would be the done point for sausage gravy. At this point I would add my milk. But I'm making tomato gravy today, so I'm going to keep going just a little bit longer on my roux. I want it a little bit browner. So I'm going to keep moving it. Get it off the bottom. I don't want any burn spots in my roux. Alright, so I think this is getting just how I like it. It's a caramel color. Got my spices floating around in there. Yep, I think that's how I like it. Alright, so I've got about 1.5 cups of hot water. So I'm going to pour some water in here. Yeah, about 1/2 cup. I'm going to stir it around and let it pick up the flour. And as it does, it's going to thicken. Okay? So you're stirring it around and it's thick. Alright? So I'm going to add my tomato sauce. Consistency is the key to making tomato gravy. I've got my tomato sauce. I'm going to stir that around. It's a little thicker than I like, So I'm going to add some more water. Now your gravy can burn as well too. Alright, so I'm going to take my diced tomatoes. Now this is a to your taste thing. Some people like a lot of tomatoes, some people like, you know, not very many. About 3 heaping tablespoons of diced tomatoes. The juice off of some of them. There's no lumps in here. I think I'm going to add the rest of these tomatoes. You can make tomato gravy without the tomatoes, but to me the flavor is so much better with the tomatoes. So now I'm going to taste to check the salt and the spices. Okay, it needs more salt and more pepper. The Tony's is fine. There's a little bit of a bite from the Tony's. I'm going to stir in the salt and the pepper that I just added. It's smooth, there's no lumps. It's the perfect consistency to go over a biscuit. So I'm going to taste the addition of the salt and the pepper. Amen. Oh my Jesus. Alright. I'm going to let my biscuits get done and I'm going to show you how it's served. Alright, so I'll take my biscuits out. Now, I've had my gravy simmering. So as you simmer tomato gravy, or any kind of gravy for that matter, it thickens. Alright? So I'm going to check the consistency of my gravy. And if it thickens too much, then you just add some water. But this has not thickened too much. And there's no lumps or anything like that in my gravy, so that's good stuff. So I'm going to cut the fire off. I'm going to show you how I serve my tomato gravy. Alright, this is the butter that I use. It's Kerrygold. It's my favorite butter ever. So, take my biscuit. Break them open. They are hot tamale. You put a generous helping of tomato gravy on your biscuit. And that, my friends, is tomato gravy and biscuits. I hope you enjoy it. Spicy. I want to see you make this. That's it for me. Until next time, I'm finna eat. I'll see you later.